The shuttle docked with a soft sound. Kang Tae-ho looked through the small window at the massive space station floating in the darkness. The Galactic Fleet Academy. It was bigger than any city on Earth. Lights covered every part of it like stars, brought down from the sky. He was 19 years old. This was his third semester. He should have felt confident by now. But as he walked through the docking bridge with the other cadets, the familiar feeling of being small returned to him. Aliens of every shape and size moved around him. The Drakari were tall and covered in scales. They walked like they owned every room they entered. The Kelthran had hard shells and many eyes. The Varath were thin and pale, with long fingers that never stopped moving. And then there were humans, small, soft. New humanity had only joined the Galactic Union 12 years ago. In a galaxy where some species had traveled the stars for 10,000 years, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. Everyone knew it. Everyone reminded them of it. Tae-ho carried his bag through the crowded halls. A group of Drakari cadets pushed past him without looking. One of them bumped his shoulder hard enough to spin him around. "Watch where you stand, human," the Drakari said without stopping. Tae-ho said nothing. He fixed his bag and kept walking. This was normal. This was everyday. He found his room in the human section of the station. It was small but clean. He had a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out at the stars. He put his things away and sat on the bed. He was tired, but not from the journey. He was tired from pretending that the looks and the words did not hurt. His communicator made a sound. A message from his mother back on Earth. "We are proud of you, Tae-ho. Show them what humans can do." He read the message 3 times. Then he put the communicator down and looked at the stars. He wondered what it would take to make the galaxy see humans as equals. He wondered if it was even possible. The next morning, Tae-ho went to his first class. Tactical Command. It was held in a large room with screens on every wall. The teacher was a Varath named Instructor Delis. She was old and moved slowly, but her eyes were sharp. "Today we study the Battle of the Hollow Moons," she said. "Who can tell me why the Kelthran fleet failed?" Hands went up across the room. Tae-ho knew the answer. He had studied this battle many times, but he did not raise his hand. He had learned that speaking up only brought attention. Attention brought trouble. A Drakari cadet named Gorvan answered. He was large, even for his species. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were yellow like a predator. He spoke with confidence, but his answer was wrong. He blamed the Kelthran commanders for being weak. Instructor Delis shook her head. Incorrect. The failure was not weakness. It was poor supply lines. They could not fuel their ships fast enough. Gorvan did not like being corrected. He glared at the instructor but said nothing. Then his eyes moved across the room and found Tae-ho. Something in that look made Tae-ho's skin feel cold. After class, Tae-ho walked to the engineering lab. This was where he felt most comfortable. Machines did not care if you were human. They worked or they did not work. There was no judgment. He spent 3 hours fixing a broken navigation system. When he finished, the lab supervisor, a Kelthran named Supervisor Bren, looked at his work. "This is good," Bren said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "You have skill, human." It was the first kind thing anyone had said to Tae-ho in weeks. He tried not to show how much it meant to him. That night, Tae-ho could not sleep. He walked through the empty halls of the station. The lights were dim. Most cadets were in their rooms. He liked the quiet. It was the only time he could move freely without feeling watched. He passed the combat training hall. The door was open. Soft sounds came from inside. Someone was training. Tae-ho stopped. He looked through the door. A human girl was inside. She was alone. She moved across the training floor with speed and power that Taeho had never seen before. Her kicks cut through the air. Her punches hit the training dummy so hard that the sound echoed off the walls. Every movement was perfect. Every strike was deadly dot. She was beautiful in a terrifying way. Like a storm or a blade, Taeho recognized her. Park Yuna. She was a senior cadet. He had seen her in the halls, but she always looked ordinary. Quiet, forgettable. She never spoke to anyone. She never stood out, but this was not the same person. This was a warrior. Yuna stopped moving. She turned her head toward the door. Taeho held his breath. Her eyes found him in the darkness. For a long moment they stared at each other. Then she looked away. She picked up a towel and wiped her face. She acted like he was not there. Taeho walked away slowly. His heart was beating fast. He had so many questions. Why did she hide her abilities? Why did she pretend to be weak when she was so strong? He did not understand. But he knew one thing. There was more to humans than the galaxy believed. 3 days later, Taeho was walking back to his room after dinner. The halls were busy. Cadets from different species moved in groups, talking and laughing. Taeho walked alone. A hand grabbed his shoulder from behind. It was strong and rough. Claws dug into his uniform. Taeho turned. Gorvan stood behind him. 2 other Drakari were with him. They were all smiling. It was not a friendly smile. Human, Gorvan said. We need to talk. Taeho tried to pull away. I have nothing to say to you. Gorvan's grip tightened. That is not how this works. You do not get to choose. The other cadets in the hall looked away. Nobody wanted to get involved. Nobody wanted to help. Gorvan leaned close. His breath was hot and smelled like metal. Tomorrow, Training Hall 3. Be there when the second bell rings. If you do not come, we will find you. And it will be worse. He let go. Taeho stumbled back. The 3 Drakari walked away laughing. Taeho stood in the hall for a long time. He knew what was coming. He knew he could not escape it. And he knew that nobody would help him. He was alone. Or so he thought. Taeho did not sleep that night. He lay in his bed and watched the stars through his window. He thought about running. He thought about hiding. But he knew it would not help. Gorvan would find him. The Drakari always found their prey. When morning came, he went to his classes like nothing was wrong. He answered questions when asked. He took notes. He ate lunch alone in the corner of the food hall. Everything felt strange. Like he was already gone from this place. The second bell rang. Taeho stood up slowly. His legs felt heavy. He walked through the halls toward Training Hall 3. Each step felt like walking toward his own end. The hall was in the lower section of the station. It was used for combat practice, but at this hour, it was supposed to be empty. Taeho pushed open the door and stepped inside. It was not empty. Gorvan stood in the center of the room. But he was not alone. 7 other Drakari surrounded him. And worse, there were other aliens too. Varth. Some species Taeho did not recognize. At least 30 cadets filled the edges of the room, watching. Waiting. This was not a private meeting. This was a show. Gorvan saw Taeho and smiled wide. His teeth were sharp and white. The human came. I did not think you would have the courage. Taeho stopped walking. He was 10 steps from Gorvan. His heart was pounding, but he kept his face calm. What do you want? What do I want? Gorvan laughed. The other Drakari laughed with him. I want you to understand your place, human. I want everyone here to see what you really are. He stepped forward. 2 of his friends moved behind Taeho and blocked the door. There was no escape now. Your species has been in space for what? 60 years? 70? Gorvin shook his head. My people have ruled star systems for 8,000 years. The Varth have been building empires since before your kind learned to make fire. And you think you can stand beside us as equals? Tejo said nothing. There was nothing to say. I asked you a question, human. Gorvin's voice became hard. Do you think you are our equal? I am a cadet at this academy, Tejo said quietly. The same as you. The room went silent. Gorvin's eyes grew narrow. The same as me? He moved fast. His clawed hand struck Tejo across the face. The blow was hard enough to send him to the floor. Pain exploded across his cheek. He tasted blood. The crowd made sounds of excitement. Some laughed. Some cheered. Get up, Gorvin said. Tejo pushed himself to his knees. His head was spinning. Before he could stand, a kick hit his stomach. All the air left his body. He fell forward, gasping. Weak, Gorvin said. Soft. This is what humans are. This is all they will ever be. He kicked Tejo again. This time in the ribs. Something cracked. The pain was so bad that Tejo could not even scream. He could only curl up on the floor and try to breathe. The crowd was louder now. They were enjoying this. To them, this was entertainment. A powerful species putting a weak one in its place. Beg, Gorvin said. He stood over Tejo like a mountain. Beg me to stop, and I will think about it. Tejo looked up. His face was covered in blood. His body was broken, but his eyes were clear, cold, unbroken. No, the word was quiet, but everyone heard it. The room went still. Gorvin's face twisted with anger. What did you say? I said no. Tejo coughed blood onto the floor. I will not beg. Then you will suffer. Gorvin raised his foot. It was large and heavy, with claws that could tear metal. He aimed for Tejo's head. This blow would do more than hurt. This blow could kill. Tejo closed his eyes. He thought of his mother. He thought of Earth. He thought of the stars he would never explore. But the blow did not come. Instead, there was a sound. A rushing of air. A gasp from the crowd. Tejo opened his eyes. A hand was holding Gorvin's leg in the air. A human hand. Small but strong. It gripped the Drakari's ankle like it was made of iron. Park. Una stood beside him. She had appeared from nowhere. Her face showed no emotion. Her eyes were fixed on Gorvin. What? Gorvin started to speak. Una twisted her hand. The sound of breaking bone filled the room. Gorvin screamed. It was a high, terrible sound. He fell backward, crashing to the floor, holding his leg. The room was silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Una looked at the other Drakari. There were 7 of them. They were all bigger than her. They were all armed with claws and scales and muscle. They attacked together. The first one rushed at her from the right. She stepped aside and drove her elbow into his throat. He went down choking. The second one swung at her head. She ducked under his arm and broke his knee with a single kick. He collapsed screaming. 2 more came at her from behind. She spun and grabbed one by the wrist. She used his own weight to throw him into the other. They crashed into the wall so hard that the metal bent. The remaining 3 hesitated. They looked at each other. Fear was growing in their eyes. Come, Una said. It was the first word she had spoken. Her voice was soft but deadly. They ran at her all at once. Una moved like water. She flowed between them, striking joints and pressure points. One by one, they fell. Arms hung at wrong angles. Legs refused to work. Bodies hit the floor with heavy sounds. In less than 1 minute, 8 Drakari warriors lay on the ground. Some were unconscious. Some were crying in pain. Gorvin was trying to crawl away, dragging his broken leg behind him. Eunice stepped on his back. He stopped moving. She looked at the crowd. 30 aliens stood frozen like statues. Their eyes were wide. Their mouths hung open. They had never seen anything like this. They had never imagined a human could do this. Humans do not kneel, Eunice said. Her voice filled the silent room. Humans do not beg. Remember this. She removed her foot from Gorvan's back and walked to Taiho. She knelt beside him and helped him sit up. Her hands were gentle now. Can you stand? She asked. Te-Ho nodded. He did not trust his voice. She helped him to his feet. He leaned on her shoulder. Together, they walked toward the door. The crowd parted for them like water around a stone. Nobody tried to stop them. Nobody said a word. As they passed through the door, Teho looked back. Gorvan was still on the floor. His yellow eyes were filled with something Teho had never seen in a Drakari before. Fear. The door closed behind them. Teho and Yuna walked through the empty hall. His body screamed with pain, but something inside him felt different. For the first time since coming to the academy, he did not feel alone. The medical bay was cold and bright. Teho lay on a bed while machines scanned his body. 3 broken ribs, a cracked cheekbone, bruises covering his chest and back. The medical officer, a 4-armed alien named Dr. Hellas, worked quickly to repair the damage. You are lucky, Hellas said. His voice was high and musical. If that kick had landed on your head, you would be dead. Teho said nothing. He stared at the ceiling and thought about what had happened. He thought about why she was sitting in a chair across the room. Her arms were crossed. Her eyes were closed. She had not spoken since they arrived at the medical bay. She looked peaceful, like someone resting after a simple workout. But Teho had seen what she could do. He had seen her break 8 warriors like they were made of paper. He had seen the fear in Gorvan's eyes. Who was she? The door to the medical bay opened. A group of officers walked in. At the front was Commander Vel. He was a Kelthran, tall and covered in hard shell. His many eyes moved across the room, taking in everything at once. Behind him came 4 Drakari officers. Their faces were dark with anger. One of them pointed at Yuna. That is her, he said. She attacked our cadets without reason. She must be arrested and punished. Yuna opened her eyes. She looked at the Drakari officer, but said nothing. Commander Vel raised one of his armored hands. Silence. We will determine what happened through proper investigation. There is nothing to investigate, the Drakari officer said. 8 of our finest cadets are in surgery. This human broke their bones like they were prey animals. This is assault. This is a crime. And what about him? Yuna spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm and cold. She pointed at Teho. 3 broken ribs. A cracked skull. Your finest cadets did that to an unarmed human, while 30 others watched and cheered. The Drakari officer's mouth closed. He looked away. Commander Vel stepped forward. Training Hall 3 has full surveillance. We have already reviewed the footage. He paused. His many eyes focused on the Drakari officers. What I saw was a group of cadets beating an unarmed human. I saw them prepare to deliver a killing blow to his head. And I saw Cadet Park intervene to save his life. The room went quiet. But she broke their bones, the Drakari officer said. His voice was weaker now. She used excessive force. She used necessary force, Vel replied. 1 human against 8 Drakari. She had seconds to act. If she had been gentle, she would be dead, and Cadet Kang would be dead. The force was justified. He turned to face Yuna. His eyes studied her for a long moment. However, I have questions. Cadet Park, you have been at this academy for 3 years. Your combat scores are average. Your physical tests are unremarkable. Yet today, you defeated 8 trained Drakari in under a minute. Explain this. Yuna stood up slowly. She was shorter than everyone in the room. She looked small and ordinary, but there was something in her eyes that made even Commander Vel take a small step back. I hid my abilities, she said simply. Why? Yuna looked at the Drakari officers. When humans first joined the Galactic Union, we were eager to prove ourselves. We showed our strength. We showed our technology. We showed our potential. She paused, and we were punished for it. Our best scientists were pushed out of research programs. Our strongest soldiers were assigned to dangerous missions where they would die. Our smartest leaders were ignored and silenced. She walked toward the window. The stars shone outside. Other species feared what we could become, so they worked to keep us down. They made rules that limited our advancement. They spread stories that made us look weak and foolish. They made sure we would never rise. She turned back to face the room. So I learned to hide. I learned to look average. I learned to be forgotten. Because being forgotten meant being left alone. Being forgotten meant survival. Commander Vel was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. And today? Why reveal yourself today? Yuna looked at Taeho. Something in her expression changed. It became warmer, almost gentle, because some things are more important than hiding. Because I saw a boy who refused to kneel, even when he was beaten and broken. Because I remembered why I fight. She looked back at Vel. I fight for my people, and my people do not deserve to be kicked while the galaxy watches and laughs. The Drakari officers shifted uncomfortably. They would not meet Yuna's eyes. Commander Vel nodded slowly. The footage is clear. Cadet Gorvin and his group initiated the assault. They will face disciplinary action. Suspension at minimum. Possible expulsion. Commander, you cannot, the Drakari officer started. I can, Vel interrupted. And I will. This academy has rules. Those rules apply to all species equally. If your cadets cannot follow those rules, they do not belong here. The Drakari officers looked at each other. They were angry, but they knew they had lost. Without another word, they turned and left the room. Vel waited until the door closed. Then he walked to Yuna and stood before her. I have studied humans for many years, he said. I have read your history. Your wars, your struggles, your survival against all odds. He paused. I always suspected there was more to your species than you showed. Now I know I was right. Yuna said nothing. You are dangerous, Vel continued. All humans are, not because of your strength or your speed, but because of your spirit. You refuse to give up. You refuse to accept defeat. Even when everything is against you, you keep fighting. He stepped back. I will not report your true abilities in my official records. But know this. I will be watching. Not as a threat, but because I want to see what humans become. I think it will be remarkable. He walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. Take care of your ribs, Cadet Kong. And Cadet Park? Next time, perhaps do not break quite so many bones. It creates paperwork. There was almost a smile in his voice. Then he was gone. Taeho sat up slowly. The pain was less now. The machines had done their work. He looked at Yuna. Thank you, he said. You saved my life. Yuna walked over and sat on the edge of his bed. You saved yourself. You could have begged. You could have given Gorvin what he wanted. But you did not. That takes more courage than anything I did. I was just too stubborn to quit. Yes, Yuna said. That is what makes us human. They sat together in silence for a while. Outside the window, ships moved through the darkness. Stars burned in the distance. The galaxy stretched on forever. What happens now? Taeho asked. Yuna looked at him. For the first time, she smiled. It was small but real. Now everything changes. News traveled fast in the academy. By the next morning, everyone knew what had happened in Training Hall 3. The story spread from room to room, from species to species. It grew with each telling. A human girl had defeated 8 Drakari in combat. She had moved so fast that no one could see her strikes. She had broken bones like they were dry branches. She had done it all to protect a fellow human who refused to kneel. Some said she was a special experiment, a weapon created in secret human labs. Others said she was a demon from human mythology. A few said she was proof that humans had been hiding their true nature all along. Whatever they believed, one thing was certain. No one looked at humans the same way again. Taeho returned to his classes 3 days after the incident. His ribs were healed. His face was normal. But something inside him had changed. He walked differently now. He stood straighter. He did not look at the floor when aliens passed him, and the aliens noticed. A group of Varath cadets stepped aside when Taeho walked through a doorway. They did not push him. They did not mock him. They simply moved and let him pass. In the food hall, a Kelthran cadet nodded at him. It was a small gesture, a simple acknowledgement, but it had never happened before. Even the Drakari avoided him. They would not meet his eyes. They walked the other way when they saw him coming. The species that had ruled through fear now felt fear themselves. Gorvan was not at the academy anymore. The official story said he was recovering from his injuries at a medical station. But everyone knew the truth. He had been expelled. His attack on Taeho had been recorded. There was no way to hide what he had done. His followers were suspended. They walked the halls with shame on their faces. Their status as elite warriors meant nothing now. They had been beaten by a single human. That would follow them forever. Taeho found Yuna in the observatory late one evening. She was sitting alone, looking at the stars. He sat down beside her. "How are you handling all of this?" he asked. Yuna shrugged. "I have had attention before. It fades. This feels different. Maybe." She was quiet for a moment. Humans back on Earth are talking about what happened. It is on the news channels. People are proud. Taeho had not checked the news. He had been trying to avoid the attention. But he understood why Earth would care. For years, humans in space had been treated as lesser beings. Now there was proof that they could stand against the strongest species in the galaxy. "Are you worried?" Taeho asked. "The Drakari have long memories. They might try to take revenge." Yuna turned to look at him. Her eyes were calm. "Let them try. I have spent 3 years hiding what I am. I am tired of hiding." She stood up and walked to the window. The stars reflected in her eyes. "When I was young, my grandmother told me a story. She said that humans are like water. We seem soft and weak. We flow around obstacles. We let ourselves be pushed and shaped. But given enough time, water can wear down mountains. Water can carve canyons through stone. Water is patient. And in the end, water always wins." Taeho thought about this. He thought about all the times he had been mocked. All the times he had been pushed aside. All the times he had felt small and worthless. "I do not want to be patient anymore," he said. "I want to show them what I can do now." Yuna smiled. "Then show them." The next week, the Academy announced a tactical simulation competition. Teams of cadets would command virtual fleets in battle. Strategy, planning, quick thinking. These were the things that mattered. Physical strength meant nothing in this contest. Taeho had always been good at tactical simulations. He had scored in the top 5% during his first year, but he had never entered the competitions. He had always assumed that aliens would never accept a human winning. Now, he did not care what they accepted. He entered his name on the list. He was the only human competitor. The other cadets looked at the list and laughed. A human in the tactical competition? He would be destroyed in the first round. He did not have the centuries of military tradition that other species had. He was just a child playing at war. The first round came. Tejo faced a Varath commander named Salith. The Varath were known for their careful planning. They built their strategies like puzzles, each piece fitting perfectly. Tejo destroyed him in 12 minutes. He did not use careful planning. He used chaos. He split his fleet into small groups. He attacked from multiple directions. He made decisions so fast that Salith could not keep up. By the time the Varath understood what was happening, his fleet was surrounded and burning. The observers were silent. Salith stared at the screen like he could not believe what had happened. Tejo won his second match in 15 minutes. His third in 9. He moved through the competition like a storm. Each opponent thought they understood war. None of them understood humans. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years. They had developed strategies for every situation. They had learned to think fast, adapt quickly, and never give up. War was in their blood. It was their oldest skill. By the semifinals, no one was laughing anymore. Tejo's opponent in the final round was a Kelthran named Vorn. He was the favorite to win. He had won the competition 3 years in a row. His strategies were famous throughout the academy. The match began. Vorn was good. He was very good. He matched Tejo move for move. The battle raged across the simulation for over an hour. Both fleets took heavy losses. It looked like it could go either way. Then Tejo did something unexpected. He ordered his remaining ships to charge directly at Vorn's command vessel. It was suicide. His ships would be destroyed before they reached their target, but it was a trick. While Vorn focused on the charging ships, Tejo's smallest vessels slipped around the edges of the battlefield. They were damaged and slow, but they were ignored. Vorn did not think they were a threat. They reached his supply stations. They destroyed them all in seconds. Without fuel, Vorn's fleet could not move. Without ammunition, they could not fire. The charging ships were destroyed, just as Tejo expected. But now Vorn was trapped. His powerful fleet sat helpless while Tejo's remaining ships picked them apart piece by piece. The match ended. Tejo had won. The observation room was silent. Then, slowly sounds began. Clapping. It started with one person. Then more joined. Aliens of every species applauded the human who had defeated their champion. Vorn stood up from his station. He walked across the room to Tejo. His shell-covered face showed no emotion. "That was a good battle," Vorn said. "You fought with honor." He extended one of his clawed hands. Tejo looked at it for a moment. Then he reached out and shook it. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. While Yuna was waiting outside the competition hall. She was smiling. "I told you," she said. "Show them what you can do." Tejo smiled back. "I am just getting started." 2 months passed after the tactical competition. The academy was not the same place it had been before. Something had shifted. Something deep and permanent. Human cadets walked the halls with their heads high. They spoke in class without fear of being mocked. They joined training groups with other species. They competed in competitions they never would have entered before, and they won. Often. The word spread beyond the academy. Stories about human strength and human intelligence reached other stations, other planets, other systems. People who had dismissed humanity as weak newcomers now looked at them with new eyes. Tejo stood at the center of this change. His victory in the tactical competition had made him famous. Cadets who once ignored him now sought his advice. Officers who once dismissed him now listened to his ideas. He was still young. He was still learning. But he was no longer invisible. Yet he never forgot who had saved him. He never forgot the girl who had stepped between him and death. Yuna remained mysterious. She attended her classes. She completed her training. She was polite but distant with most people. The fear other species felt toward her was still there. Everyone remembered what she had done to Gorvin and his group. No one wanted to test if she would do it again, but Taiho saw a different side of her. Late at night, when the academy was quiet, they would meet in the observatory. They would talk about Earth. They would talk about their dreams. They would talk about what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had spent so long looking down on them. Do you ever regret it? Taiho asked one night. Revealing yourself? Yuna thought about the question. Sometimes. I had spent years building a safe place. A place where no one paid attention to me. Now everyone watches everything I do. That sounds exhausting. It is. She smiled slightly. But it is also freeing. I do not have to pretend anymore. I can be myself. I can be strong without hiding it. That is worth the attention. Taiho nodded. He understood. He had spent years hiding too. Not his physical abilities, but his mind. He had stayed quiet in class even when he knew the answers. He had held back in competitions, even when he could have won. All because he was afraid of what would happen if aliens saw what he could do, now that fear was gone. What will you do after graduation? He asked. Yuna looked at the stars. The fleet wants me to train other humans. They have finally realized that we are not as weak as they thought. They want to know how we fight, how we think, how we survive. And you agreed. I made a deal. I will train humans, but I will also train with other species. Humans need to learn from the galaxy, and the galaxy needs to learn from us. If we stay separate, nothing changes. Taiho thought about this. It made sense. Humans were good at many things, but they were still young compared to other species. They had much to learn. At the same time, humans had qualities that other species lacked. The ability to adapt quickly, the refusal to give up, the creativity that came from centuries of fighting among themselves. Together, they could build something new, something stronger. A sound came from the door. Taiho and Yuna turned. A figure stood in the shadows. Even in darkness, they recognized the shape.gor van. He stepped forward into the light. He walked slowly. His leg was healed, but there was a slight limp in his step. A permanent reminder of what Yuna had done to him. Tae-Ho stood up quickly. His body tensed, ready to fight if needed. But Yuna raised a hand, telling him to wait. Gorvin stopped a few meters away. His face was different than before. The arrogance was gone. The cruel smile was missing. He looked older, tired. I came to talk, he said. Not to fight. Yuna studied him with cold eyes. Talk then. Gorvin was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I spent my whole life believing that Drakari were the strongest species in the galaxy. We were raised to think that way. Our fathers told us. Our teachers told us. Everyone told us. We were the warriors. Everyone else was beneath us. He looked at Yuna. And then you destroyed that belief in 45 seconds. You deserved worse, Yuna said calmly. Maybe? Gorvin looked at the floor. When I was recovering, I had time to think. I thought about what I had done. I thought about what you said. Humans do not kneel. I kept hearing those words. He looked up again. His yellow eyes were strange now. Not angry. Not afraid. Something else. I was wrong. About humans. About everything. I was a fool who thought strength meant hurting those weaker than yourself. But real strength is not that. Real strength is what you did. protecting someone who could not protect themselves. Taeho and Yuna exchanged a glance. Neither of them had expected this. Why are you telling us this? Taeho asked. Gorvin took a deep breath. Because I want you to know that I have changed. I cannot undo what I did. I cannot take back the pain I caused. But I can be different going forward. I can try to be better. He turned to leave. Then he stopped and looked back one more time. For what it is worth, I am sorry. Truly sorry. He walked away. His footsteps echoed in the empty hall until they faded to nothing. Taeho sat back down slowly. His heart was beating fast. I did not expect that. Yuna was quiet for a while. Then she spoke. People can change. It is rare. It is hard. But it is possible. Maybe we just saw it happen. Do you believe him? Yuna shrugged. I believe he meant what he said. Whether he can keep that promise remains to be seen. But even the attempt matters. It takes courage to admit you were wrong. They sat in silence after that. Outside the window, a ship passed slowly. Its lights blinked as it moved toward the docking bay. Somewhere on that ship, cadets from some distant world were arriving at the academy. They would walk these halls. They would face the same challenges. They would learn the same lessons. And now, when they saw a human, they would think twice before mocking. The semester ended a week later. Taeho finished with the highest tactical scores in his class. Yuna graduated with honors in combat training. They stood together at the ceremony while Commander Vel read their names. Aliens of every species watched. Some still looked at humans with doubt. Some looked with suspicion. But more and more looked with something new. Respect. After the ceremony, Taeho and Yuna walked to the observatory one last time. Ships were leaving the station, carrying cadets home for the break. The stars seemed brighter than usual. What will you do now? Yuna asked. Taeho looked at the stars. I have been offered a position on a deep space exploration vessel. They want someone who can fast and adapt quickly. They said humans are good at that. Yuna smiled. They are learning. What about you? The training program starts next month. I will be teaching young humans how to fight, how to survive, how to never kneel. Taeho nodded. They are lucky to have you. They stood in silence for a moment. So much had changed since that day in Training Hall 3. So much would continue to change. Do you think the galaxy will ever truly accept us? Taeho asked. Yuna looked at him. Her eyes were warm now. Kind. The cold warrior was still there beneath the surface, but there was more to her than just that. Maybe, maybe not. But it does not matter. We do not need them to accept us. We only need them to understand one thing. What is that? Yuna turned to face the stars. The light reflected in her eyes like tiny fires. That humans have arrived. And we are not going anywhere. Taeho smiled. He looked at the galaxy spread out before them. Billions of stars. Millions of worlds. Countless species who had once looked at humans and seen nothing worth fearing. They were wrong. And now, finally, they knew it. The future was uncertain. There would be more challenges, more enemies, more battles to fight. But for the first time in a long time, Taeho felt ready. He was human. And that was enough.